Welcome back to my hometown. Thanks for taking a little time to visit with me today. Today I'm excited for a couple of reasons. One, I'm excited about our guest, Brad and Deann Sherman. Thanks for joining me today. We're also in the Chapman Building, which is going to be our new home for the My Hometown podcast. Brad and Deann have been kind enough to let us shoot here, so we're going to have guests coming up. We're going to be doing it here partly because of this cool mural here we're going to talk about later. But Brad and Deann, they live in Nocona. They have Kimber Creek wine bar and gifts, and they also have the Chapman Building, which is for events and different things that you can rent out and do. So we want to talk a little bit about what brought them to start businesses here in our community, and just some of the history. Brad is going to share with a lot of history with us. I think is really cool, not only for this building, but for different things in town. So thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So, Dan, when I asked you to fill out the sheet, you said, well, I'm not sure if we're right for my hometown because we're not from my hometown.
Right.
We're not from Bowie. We don't actually live here. We live in Nocona. And I told you that was even the best thing, because I'm always interested in because homegrown, we grow up and start a business because we just love our town. We don't want to move away.
Right.
But it's different when you both lived in the Metroplex. You now live in Nocona, but you want to start a business and start in Bowie. So first of all, tell me a little bit, Brad, your background is in
Structural repairs and inspections, and I started in that when I was 18. I stayed in that industry for 33 years until we relocated to Montague County. Actually, I stayed in it 2 more years after relocating here, driving back and forth. Of course, the drive and the whip of the traffic. And then you get out here and you're like, well, there's no traffic, there's no stress. The stress level goes up when you hit Denton. You come back, the stress level goes down. And finally, one day, she had a booth at what was called at the time Purple Coyote.
Just a little craft
Store that rented booths, and she started putting wares in there, and she was doing very well.
Where was that?
Right next to Sweet Boys.
Okay.
Between Bradley's and
okay, that's right. I knew it was right uptown, but I can't remember where it was.
Yes, and she did well, and one day she says, hey, what do you think about opening our own store? And at the time, like I said, I was kind of transitioning between 33-year career and something else, and I thought, that'd be interesting. I don't know if I'm going to fall in love with it, but it'd be interesting. And so we first looked in Nocona, drove around, came to Bowie, looked around, and I saw a lot of empty buildings, boarded up buildings in disrepair, and I thought, somebody's got to start, someplace. Why don't we purchase a building in Bowie and redo that and fix it up into a real nicey, classy store.
So at this time, were you living still in the Metroplex, or had then moved to Nocona?
We had already moved.
We had already moved
to Nocona.
Yeah. We originally bought land in Montague in 2009. 2009. We didn't move out full time until 2015 once they finished our house. Anyway, we made several trips all over the county. I think Montague County is unique. Beautiful. We drove to Nocona, St. Joe, Forsberg, Bowie, and everywhere we went, we'd stop, talk to people, go in stores, shop a little bit, get to know people, and we met several people in Bowie that was very interested, very, very glad we were here. I'm a historical buff, so I'd always ask history. We walked and talked to Mr. Bradley, and you'll talk to him for a day before he'll let you go. And so I thought, man, this is pretty cool. There's a lot of history here. There's a lot of buildings with what I believed at the time, a lot of rich history that if I researched it, we could redo a few buildings. And I bought that first one because we just felt for some reason at home here.
And then the first building was?
We bought actually from Mark and Galen Burris.
And it was the first,
the old frame shop.
Kimber Creek was original.
Yes, correct. Right there
and it was just the gift store.
Okay.
Right on Smythe Street. And it took me a little while. I believe at the time I was still going back and forth. She called a few contractors to maybe do some things for her. That didn't work out so well, and so we talked several conversations on what if I retired and started doing this myself. And I thought, boy, from what I'm doing right now, driving, doing inspections, it's not very laborious. So I thought, yeah, I'm a hard worker. I love hard work. So I said, yeah, I'll take it on. So we cleaned it all out, tore out the carpets, put nice wood floors in, hired some electricians, redid the bathrooms, redid the entire thing, replaced some glass, got it all fixed up, painted it. Her mom and dad came out, daughters came out, helped us do a bunch of work on it. And we finally had our opening. And it went well. It went
And that was in
really
2017.
2017.
Uh-huh.
And it was funny because we weren't really, like, neither of us had ever done anything like that before. I didn't know anything about having a gift store. So we had to do a lot of research on that. And
But business-wise, you've had businesses.
Yes.
And have a business. So
Yes.
with the business part, you were kind of,
the business part was.
Knew that, and
Yes, we
it's
already
the-
knew the business part.
We had
both
the
of
business
us.
background.
Yeah,
What we didn't know, you think, wow, this place is going to be busy every day. The first grand opening, everybody's here.
'Cause
But
everybody-
what everybody
Yeah.
learns as they open a new business, especially in a smaller community, you'll have some good days and bad days, and sometimes bad weeks, months. And we struggled for a little bit. This is before I had Facebook to promote it. We did some newspaper advertising. We passed cards out, tell our friends. But it finally started growing. It took us probably 2 years before it became, I thought at the time, the go-to place for birthday gifts, wedding gifts, baby shower gifts, birthday cards, Mother's Day gifts. So it became the go-to place. It's doing really well. And then all of a sudden, boom, one night we're closing up at 6:30. We lock the door, set the alarm, we go home. We're getting calls at 9:30 from the alarm company and some friends in Bowie saying, you probably should come to Bowie. And I'm thinking, well,
and this was
it's
in
kinda raining.
2020.
yes.
This is May of 2020, and it's raining real hard at our place. We're actually sitting on our back porch, watching the lightning show, filming it actually. I found that months later that I actually filmed it that night. And it's a beautiful lightning show, but we get here, golly, wow, we pull up, and we're like, where's the front of the building? There's no lights, no power, gas is spewing. I pull across the street in Creative Cake's parking lot, shine the lights at the building, in front of the building's gone, the roof's gone. It changes your whole life. I mean, I've seen it on TV. My whole life I've seen tornadoes, devastation, but until you incur it yourself, you don't realize all the stuff that you're going to deal with for the next 2 to 3 years. It's devastating. Still hard to talk about, but
And there was buildings right next to it that,
That didn't even
They weren't
hardly get.
touched.
yeah, you
Like,
had
they
Napa.
did get a little bit of damage.
Napa had some roof damage, some metal damage on the back corner. What I call the Bishop buildings were the two buildings just north of us, the big old stone buildings, been there since the 1800s. I think they had a little roof damage. From what I understand later, every building downtown had at least roof damage, window damage, some kind of damage. Everybody was hit all the way down, all the way past Ace. So everybody was incurring this damage. It was just as personally, it was just, man.
everything that
It's
you've been
like-
working on for
Yes.
2
Yeah,
years.
and
From remodeling to building the business to,
just to kind of go back a step, maybe a couple years, maybe a year and a half just before that, we had a realtor come in Kimber Creek and told us, hey, don't know if you're interested, but Heartland is, I think, going out of business or they want to sell, and would you be interested? And at first we said no. They were very successful there. They were always busy, busier than we were. at
And
the
they had
time.
been here for a long time. They gift store right
A
next
lot
door
of
to
history
us
with
here.
them, decades, I believe. But I thought, no, not really. I mean, we're kind of struggling a little bit. I don't know how we can pull that off. But the more time went by, we ended up meeting Casey Denson. He, I believe, was the owner, the owner of it. And we talked to him, and after I talked to him, and we talked to him, man, it just had this feeling come over. It's like, man, this is a great guy. I think this could be a good thing. Maybe we can work this out. And he says, well, you know, we talked about it, thought, well, we'll just buy the merchandise. We don't really have need for the building. They kind of said, okay. I think they wanted to sell it all together. And he said, hey, when you buy that building, you're going to buy the old Bowie mission with it. It's part of the deal. And we
got to get rid of that thing
We
somehow.
came over and it was like,
the more and more
It's
I thought
bad
about
shape.
it, we may have thought differently at the time.
We
The more
did.
and more I thought about it, I thought, well, you know what? If we buy the merchandise, we relocate it to her store, combine the two, maybe, you know, that'll help Kimber Creek with a little boost, and it'll give me something to do. Now, after this 33-year career, I'm retired. I need something to do. I thought, well, I'll come in, paint the buildings, fix them up, either sell them or lease them out, you know, just clean up some empty buildings. And I got into doing it, and I started going, wow, I got blisters and splinters and tired, but I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I finished that one. I believe we turned that into a frame shop, because with Gay Lynn's help, we turned it into a frame shop. I started working on this one upstairs, but the whole 6 months I was working on that, I was at the library probably 2-3 times a week. Talking to Mr. Bradley, talking to Miss Angove, Parks, Nan Parks, and a lot of elders in town. Any information I could dig up on this whole building, because there was a painted sign that had fainted over the doors that I could not make it out. I could make a few letters out. And it kind of got me in this route of digging up the history of this old building. Had to be here a long time.
And this is all during the time that Kimber Creek is over there and still within
Yeah,
those
we're still going
couple
strong.
years.
Yeah.
So then, go
Yeah.
back to the tornado. Once it happens, I mean, you're just devastated. You don't know, one, where to start, what to do. All these emotions, and wow, our baby's gone, and what now? And we had, I would say, almost every customer, friend, people that we've known in not just Bowie, but Montague, Nocona. We're all there the next morning.
it was
Gloves
just
on.
the best thing ever. I mean, we just felt so much love from the whole community. I mean, all over.
The community pulled together
really
like
wonderful.
I've never seen before,
Yeah.
never even been a part of. And I'm like, these people don't need to be here, right? I mean, they wanted to be. Gloves on, jackets on, still raining the next morning, just pouring down rain. Your nine's not thinking straight. We've got to salvage what we can salvage is your first thought. Call the insurance agent, get him out here. I think she sent or went to Walmart, bought every plastic tub with a
Well,
lid
then we
on
had
it.
a lot of people, businesses too, that were bringing us boxes and tubs and stuff.
So
It
here
was
we
really
are
great.
going, that's not salvageable. This is, boom, boom, boom. We're throwing it in boxes. Pouring down rain, mind you, with all these people. What can we do? What can we do? People bringing us food, water,
Well, and it
wanting to
was
help.
also just barely right after COVID had started. So everybody was not even concerned at the time. All they wanted to do was help.
I don't
You know,
think
so
I
they
saw a
weren't
mask
really
on
worried about
anybody, and
COVID
really didn't even
then.
think about it.
They were just worried about everybody in the whole town needed help, you know, and people were out in droves helping each other, which was great.
We had, the Robert and Rebecca Bishop showed up, Debbie from the Chamber, Tommy Finelio, Brady Finelio, tractor, 18-wheeler to put stuff in and help. And we're throwing all this stuff in these plastic totes, putting the lids on them, throwing them in this 18-wheeler, storing it in there. People helping us dig through the rubble. When I said you don't know what to do and you're just doing whatever comes first to mind, several months later, we're like, what do we do with all this stuff we saved? We don't have a store. We went to Second Mondays, opened a booth there. 100 degrees, July. Ooh, I regretted that. Anyway, we're like, hey, let's take this tote and we get them up there and they're all molded.
Yeah.
So thinking back, you're like, well, you can't put wet stuff in plastic totes, store it in
And
the
it'd be
building,
okay.
and it'd be okay. You're thinking that at the time, not knowing it dry out. So that was a disappointment. Like, we went through all those motions for what? Now we're devastated again. It just brings up bad memories. But anyway, it was an interesting time. It was a devastating time. And the whole time, even being at Second Mondays, like, what do we do? What are we gonna do? Kind of go back and forth with insurance for a while. You always find out you're never covered for what it costs at today's cost to rebuild. You're only insured so much content, well beyond what we had in our store. So that was financially devastating. But we tossed and turned several conversations thinking, yeah, let's not reopen. It took up a lot of her time. Then we'd get a day where, she would get several calls, when are you reopening? And this is over a 2-year period.
But we really moved out here to retire, so we thought, well, maybe we don't want to open another building.
So that was really the intention, was to move out here to retire.
Yes.
To relax,
Yes.
vacation.
That was the point. Move out to the
Lake off.
country, right?
Because I think y'all are far from retired.
Yeah, we're very.
We are now.
We talk about that every week.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, that was the point.
I don't think
So then
we're
that's the
geared
big
that way.
discussion of, well, we meant to retire, and we really didn't mean to get into a business. We got into business, now it's gone.
Yeah.
Correct.
And
Let's just let it go.
yeah, because we were going to retire.
Yeah.
So,
But
what is that conversation, the but that goes, we're going to reopen?
Well, me, after getting over the devastation, clearing the lot, paving it, making it a parking lot, I went back to work on these buildings. And I believe I did actually just before the tornado, we had the upstairs finished here because it suffered roof damage, window damage, brick damage.
I think the
There
bottom
were
was
tenant-
done too, wasn't it? I don't remember.
Yeah, it was because COVID kind of hurt that
Yeah.
business. When COVID came in,
Yeah.
the event center kind
Because
of.
the bottom part here is events, top part is office
Yeah,
space.
Yes.
we call the second floor, it's kind of like the third floor,
I call it the
guess.
third floor.
Yeah,
1, 2, 3.
There's a balcony that goes all the
So
way around.
this one, the next one, part of the roof caved in next door, the old Heartland building, part of the roof flooded it, ruined the frame shop, so that was gone. This one we got on, I think the first thing, just to get it restored back together. Went back to work on that. We got that finished, and we decided not to open the frame shop back up, to just lease it out. In the time being, we were trying to figure out what to do with Kimber Creek if we were going to do anything.
Well, we also talked about putting Kimber Creek over there where the frame shop was, or where Heartland was, putting Kimber Creek back in there. We kind of talked about that a little bit. We talked about putting it in here.
I don't think she was ready. I mean,
wasn't ready.
So it was like,
okay.
let's just lease it out. And
Yeah, I
Yeah,
wasn't ready for
until
a
we
while.
can come up with a mutual agreement on whether we're going to open it back up or not. And I don't think she was ready, so we just leased it out. And I had bought a year earlier, I had bought what was called at the time Frank Green Carpet Building. And it had been closed, from my understanding, somewhere about 17, 18 years. It suffered, we owned it, had it as storage for a little bit. It suffered tornado damage. Roof, blew the back door in, blew the front out of the building, the glass out.
Well, the tornado had come through the parking lot next to Creative Cakes. That's how it got us complete. Smythe went through that building and through the alley and then through the back of where Kimber Creek is now, the building he's talking about. and blew all
So
the
it
windows
just went-
and everything
I was
out.
just, prior to the tornado, actually working on that one too, drying it in. Not sure, we never had an idea what we were ever going to do with it. It was just one of those, I had building materials, I had supplies, I had tools. I needed to get them out of this building at the time to redo the floors. And I thought, well, I'm going to finish this one pretty soon. I guess I need another project. I'll do that one. That one was a huge undertaking as well.
So do you question, like, when the tornado comes through and hits two of your buildings, do you start to question, like, are we supposed to be doing this? Or
Yes,
are
we do.
It did cross our mind, absolutely.
Yeah,
It
and that
did.
made us think, maybe we don't want to do this after all. You know, maybe there's a reason for that. There's a reason why all of the buildings that we owned got damaged in one way or the other. So we kind of thought about that too. Maybe
Yeah,
we
that
don't
was-
do
that
any
was
of
a-
it.
That was a little
But-
thought process.
We did have to have a way to
Because
get info.
we've always been told from locals, and I believe Galen Burris, that tornadoes never come through Bowie. It's in this bowl.
You're thinking, well, we're safe
Boom,
here.
it's not gonna happen, and then, of course, we had another one not long ago, but, yeah, it crossed our mind, whether, do we continue, will this happen again? After dealing with insurance for a while, you're like, what if it happens again? Do we really wanna go down that road? That was not fun, that was the worst part of it, believe it or not, trying to figure out resolution to the insurance part. And I think over that 2-year period during or after the tornado, COVID was full blown, and of course you're not going to open anything up. But she had a lot of friends and customers calling her, when are you going to open? We want you to open. We
Every
missed this.
time you would see anybody in town, when y'all opening? When is Kimber Creek coming back?
And
It
then
makes
it's
you
out
feel
now,
good.
yes.
It makes you feel really great.
Kind of, maybe skipping a little bit, but when I was doing the history on this building, I told you I was going back and forth library, talking to every elder that I can talk to, not just in Bowie, but even Montague and Nocona, because a lot of those people that have lived here their whole life, whether they're 80, 60, 40, heard stories from their grandparents and parents. And I gathered all this information. I wanted to restore it to the way it looked in 1915, but put all the amenities in it. Obviously, it didn't have air conditioning, heat, running hot water, blah, blah, blah. So we did all that, and as you look around, I painted it to match the metal tile ceiling, so it's not an eyesore. It doesn't pull your eye away from the historical part. As you see this downstairs right now with the mezzanine around it, this is exactly how it was looked in 1915 when it was a dry goods store, department store. In the upstairs, come to find out, was all offices up there from 1915 to whenever it was boarded up in 1950s or 60s. It had the original metal tile ceilings, although be it they were rusted, some holes in places, people, floors were deteriorated. But it had the bones there. It had these bones that if we sanded all these ceilings real meticulously, primer them, we could get them to look brand new. Now the ones with holes in it, I created a mechanical room, 2 restrooms, a storage room, and I took the tiles out of there, used it to redo those, and then put tile in the bathrooms, storage room, and used that wood flooring to replace the rotted wood floors in here. So it's all original material. We started upstairs, did the same thing. It already had the original layout of where the offices were, the bathrooms. The only thing that has changed upstairs is there are 2 full bathrooms and a little kitchenette. All the offices are exactly where they were, the design, the space, the windows, everything. We were lucky enough when we went up there, it had the original old wood doors from 1915 with all this intricate woodwork on it and trim. The original glass was still in the doors. When I went to the library to research each person's name that was hand painted on these doors, they were in the history books. The Cofields, J.W. Chancellor, one of the longest serving mayors of Bowie back in the 1920s. He was a city attorney, he was the mayor. He had an office here, other attorneys had offices, a doctor had an office. So I researched all these people, and I had Gay Lynn take the glass, frame it, we put that on the walls and replaced it with safety glass after sanding 7 coats of paint off these doors. But I'm glad I did that. I put it all back together just the way it was. So if you walk in 1915, this is what it would have looked like. I didn't know what I was going to do with the downstairs. We knew the upstairs would be offices. I didn't know what I was doing downstairs. At one time, it crossed my mind of a wine bar. But as I was working here every day, bringing material in, taking material out, there wasn't much parking. We just had the 2 streets. There's probably 6 parking spots on both sides of the street. I'm thinking, that may not be enough parking. What would we do? I don't know. We just thought about it for a while, thought about it, and trying to think of who that was that told me. May have been Ben Robbins that said, you thought about putting an event center in. Well, no, I hadn't thought about it. We talked about it, thought, yeah, why not? We've got parking in the back, event center, weekends, there's plenty of parking downtown. So that's how this came about. After the tornado, trying to decide whether we're going to open or not, I went back to work on the next building, which was at the Frank Green Carpet Building, and started gutting it, redoing the inside. Roger Rachel came by, Roger Rachel Whitaker, who's helped me on this building, both of them, and the next building, and they painted a mural, Texas mural on the side for me. It looks like a postcard. It says Bowie, Texas, 1883. Deann comes by one day, looking at the progress, going, wow, this could be a good Kimber Creek. I've already put the new face on the front and the windows and the mural.
So you're doing all that with just restoring it? At
Yeah,
the time, not really deciding
We
it
had
was...
kind of talked about it a little bit.
We had kind
but
of
hadn't
talked
made
about
a
it.
decision yet.
But in my mind, remember going back a year or two, I was thinking about putting a wine bar in here. Never been in the wine bar business, anything like that. It just, that was one thing when we first came to Bowie too, with all the boarded up buildings. I don't know what birthday or holiday or Valentine's or something was coming up, and as I drove through Bowie, I was trying to think of some place to take her on a date, right?
There's not
as
many
you-
places in Bowie for
As
a
you
date.
move out to the more rural communities, you have less things to choose from or get to pretty quick. And wow, there's really not a place like she said. I think, man, a wine bar would be a really cool place to take your wife for Valentine's or just a date. And I don't know, that just stuck with me. And as I was working on this, that wine bar came up, and of course it wouldn't work with parking. And when I started redoing that, I was thinking wine bar. In fact, in my mind, as I'm working on it, I'm trying to go, well, I put the sink here and the bar here and this here. And then we started talking about combining Kimber Creek and this together. That's how that actually came about, to two together. And one thing Bowie's been, I believe, very successful in is there's an event called Sip and Stroll. And that's used to be 3 times a year on a Friday evening, usually before a parade or event or something like that. And they would market it, we'd post it on Facebook. And when we were in the original store, that was usually our most successful day or evening,
had
is
a
it
ton of
brought
people
so many
come in.
people to Bowie, because you'd have, at the time, it was probably 10 businesses stay open late, 8 o'clock, whereas normally 5 o'clock,
Everything.
sidewalks were rolled up. But it did bring a lot of people, and I'm always, the history guy, and say, hey, where are you from? Oh, we're from Granbury. I'm from Wichita Falls. I'm from Gainesville. I'm thinking, wow, how'd you hear about this little event, right? Oh, we saw it on a friend's post on Facebook. Then it grew and grew and grew. It grew to the point of, man, it was great. The last one before the tornado. And that kind of stuck with us too, is people obviously like to have a glass of wine and shop. Well, how about we
And they buy
combine
more.
the two?
Yeah.
Combine the two. And it's been actually a successful idea.
Well, and that was one of the things we really like when we go to a different little town. We like to go into the wineries and do the tours and all that stuff. So we were kind of interested in it then. In the beginning, Brad really kind of thought it would be a whiskey and cigar bar.
Yeah, that's true.
And I was, I was like, I don't want my merchandise around smoke,
Yeah.
so that really didn't work out well. But
I'll tell you,
but
it's
the wine
funny.
part we really like from other places, so that kind
Yeah,
of
it's really a
got
clean,
us.
classy place to come into. She's got lots of gifts for almost any occasion. And we've had a lot of our customers, even from 5 years ago, still coming to the new location. So it's great. They tell their friends. We have a sign-in book, and I bet it's 30 pages thick now, but you'd be surprised at the different states that people have come either to see family or coming through Bowie and stopped in. Whiskey and wine, or whiskey and cigar bar. As I was researching the history on the Chapman Building, I'd come across different things in Montague County, Indian fights and this and the train coming through and all this.
And with the train coming through, behind us is a mural of the old train station.
Correct.
Which this is actually a painting of, because you went and
Of a
got a
picture.
picture Of the old train station, so
Right.
this is actually painting of actually the old train station.
Roger and Rachel Whitaker, who are, I call them our local artists in town.
'Cause they've done all the murals, I think,
All
haven't
of
they?
them. All
Yeah,
of them. I've
yeah.
had them do several for me, and there's other building owners and business owners that had done some. But funny story, even how this even came up. So as we were cleaning the brick walls off, we're literally scraping the mortar off them and the stucco and cleaning them up. And I get to this section and I kept hitting concrete. I'm like, where's the brick? And I'm digging a little bit. I don't want to dig too far, but I'm digging it. And I found out that somebody cut this wall out at some time and repoured it with concrete. That's going to look ugly now. We've got all this beautiful brick and now there's a patch. And I said to Roger, I said, I don't know how I fix that. I can't put fake brick there. I'm not going to tear the concrete out and put brick. I've got this old picture of the train station, the original train station in Bowie. Could you paint this? And I'm thinking, I'm not an artist. I'm thinking, well, he'll get it, where it looks like a train station with the tracks and it's not, but I mean, to look at it, it looks exactly like the picture. I don't know.
It looks amazing.
The artistic ability they have is amazing, both of them. But the concrete wall. So I go to the library. By then, I'm already months into researching this building. I'm going to old archives of newspaper articles, as far back as I can get. And it was the Bowie Blade, and it was Bowie News, and the Bowie Blade, and something either prior to that. So I'm way back. That's how I found out it was Chapman Building. In 1948, Mr. Chapman decided he had wanted to retire and he was going to sell the business. Well, he didn't sell the building, he sold the business to a family out of Wichita Falls, and H.A. Dotson, I believe it was. And then from 1948 on, it was called the Dotson Building. A lot of people that I know, locals in the 50s and 60s, remember it as the Dotson Building. I found an old newspaper article of the business changing hands in 1948. It read, Mr. Chapman, James Chapman, is retiring. He sold the business to H.A. Dotson. And then a few months later, there was an article where the Dotsons were going to expand. And so they got permission to cut this out to go into the next building, and they expanded the department store. And in the process of finding these old archives, you'd see old advertisements, new dresses for $1.28 and a bicycle for $10. They sold suits, they sold home goods, they sold clothes, they sold everything. But he expanded this. Well, when they closed in the 60s, I believe it was, they had to put the wall back. Not saving the brick, they formed it up, poured concrete. So that's how the concrete got there. But to get back to it, like, what do I do? Well, let's paint a mural on it. Let's paint something historical to Bowie that kind of been forgotten, and it was the train station. The train station no longer exists. So I thought that'd be cool to tie that in with this old building with all this history to it, and so that's how that came about.
And it goes, yeah, man.
Did amazing job.
Yes,
They did.
yeah. I just thought it was still over the brick. I just thought they painted, so that's interesting.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's
So because of a problem, because of an issue and trying to find
Correct.
solution, came something that it could enhance.
that's the engineering
Yeah.
thinking in
Yes.
me is how do you do this and make it look like you meant to do it without any, nobody knows that's concrete.
No,
They
I-
do now.
They do
Well,
now.
and it's framed out like
Yeah, it's
a
framed
big-
out, so I just thought, well, it's,
But it's so accurate of a painting that I've had actually people looking through the windows thinking, well, who did your banner? They thought it was a printed on banner. I said, no, that's actual hand painting. It's
painted.
pretty cool. She had mentioned the new building starting at the wine bar, and she thought at one time I wanted to do a whiskey cigar bar, and I did. I thought about it, but it thought, no, that's the wrong street to do it. So as I was doing all the history on this building, I kept coming across these little tidbits and stories about the history of Bowie and when it started, the buildings going up, businesses going in, what businesses came in, and started reading this. Quite a few bars or saloons at the time, saloons and gambling halls and even brothels on Smythe Street. But it was never called Smythe Street in these articles. It was always called Smokey Row. And I thought, that's a cool name. So I kind of got sidetracked from the Chapman Building, and I'm like, I want to dig up this Smokey Row. I started asking elders in town. They're like, yeah, I don't remember much of that, or they didn't want to remember. Their granddad told them a story, and it was all brothels and saloons, and if you were a lady, you weren't caught on that road, and the wagons would come to town, the men would get their supplies, the women would go shop, and the men would go have a beer.
On Smokey Row.
As far as I know, that's all they did. So, but it had always, I think, talking to elders and reading some of the stories in the books, I always thought it was kind of at the time to them, a black eye on Bowie. Very Christian community. The elders, I'm guessing this, looked the other way because it did bring a lot of money to the town. One, the men had something to do, the ladies go shop. So
And it's just one street over.
One
so
street
it's just
over.
one block over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. And
Yeah. You couldn't ignore it.
Yeah.
believe it or not, I mean, Mason Street is well documented with photos all the way back, right? And it was very difficult to find any photos on Smythe Street. I found one, and I think there's one at the library, and somebody else in town has one of old saloons. And it's just men sitting out there on these wooden porches, saloon doors, saloon sign, horses out front. It was very popular to come to Bowie. Men go there, women go here. A lot of gun battles, obviously probably gambling fights and things like that, or somebody had too much to drink. Again, the elders kind of looked the other way, but then came a day where there's two brothers, Hargrove brothers, that owned a bar. They were always in trouble with the law. Don't know for what reason to this day. He walked up behind a deputy on the corner of Smythe and Y Street and shot him. And they chased these boys all the way to Fort Worth, got them and killed them. Within 3 days, the elders, we've had enough, we're done. I want every bar shut down. There wasn't a bar open in 3 days. They were all gone.
That was it.
They were all history. It was all history in Bowie, lost history. Not much in the history books either. There's
And that
tidbits of it.
when was that? Late 1800s or?
So it started obviously when the town started, 1884, 83 is when it's documented, and the last bar closed, I believe it was 1906 or 1907 is when that happened. But it was still just like a Western movie on that street. It was, but they had enough to shut it down. And there's still, from what I understand, one or two buildings left there that had not burned over the years, over the decades, that still stand, that have some history of being an old saloon on Smythe Street, or Smythe Street.
And it's called Smythe Street. You mentioned me. It's called Smythe Street
It is.
because
Well, in researching it, Otto Smythe was one of the first bar owners on Smythe Street, so it was named after Smythe. I don't know how many people know that actually grew up in Bowie,
but he was the first
it's
bar
in the
owner.
history books. He was the first bar owner, and it was no longer called Smokey Row. It's called Smythe Street. And so I just thought it was really cool. I thought it's something that Bowie should embrace. It's part of their history. I feel it's a rich history, even though they may have looked at it back then as a black eye. But I had hats printed up, shirts printed up, and had every intention of one day opening a whiskey and cigar bar
On Smythe Street.
Smythe
Smokey
Street.
Row.
Smokey Row.
And call it Smokey Row, or call it Otto's. You know?
Because the only place you can get a hat and a T-shirt that says Smokey Row is at Kimber
Kimber
Creek.
Creek, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just, I don't know, I fell in love with the history of this town. I think there's a lot of rich history, and the boarded up buildings was kind of me like looking for gold, right? You uncover it, you unboard it, you're cleaning them out. We found several documents under floors, old bottles, things that pertain to the 1920s under the floors. So it's kind of for me like finding gold, right? This history, just like you can read about these buildings in the history books. They'll all be gone one day, but you can reach out and touch it, like you're touching the history. Somebody from 115 years ago touched that, right? It's true history. And so, I don't know, I just got passionate about it. And was it for my lovely wife, I'd have done a lot more, right? But one downside too, and I know you asked some hardships of the tornado and stuff. I guess it was stressful enough, and me maybe not eating right for 50 years. I had some heart surgery. 4 months after the tornado. And so that, again, that 2-year period of Kimber Creek not opening up kind of caused a delay too, because it was 4 heart surgeries in a
In that-
2-year period. And I don't
So
think you
there's a
could
reason
tell today.
why.
I've got great doctors, I've got a great cardiologist, and I forget that I've had heart surgery. I still want to go out and climb ladders and get on roofs and restore buildings. So.
Maybe the reason why I wanted him to kind of slow down a little bit.
And not go so hard and so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
And then, so Kimber Creek, you opened up the new location.
In August,
In
this
August.
past year,
With the wine bar and,
with the wine bar, which
Kimber.
was new to us, never have done it before. We learned a lot prior.
We
It
have
took
had to
us a year
research
to
a lot of stuff about wine.
research it, go through background checks, apply for licenses, insurance, and all this stuff, and not doing it before. It's been a learning curve. It's been
But-
fun. We've met a lot of people. We've met people, even though we knew a lot of people in Bowie before we opened up the wine bar. We've met a lot more, and now it's to the point where we know Joe, and that's his brother, and that's his sister and grandmother. You know, we've met more people. But I'll tell you, on the weekends, which I think is excellent for Bowie, is it's bringing people to our town, either for Second Mondays, sale barn, just to visit family. We're seeing new people on Friday and Saturday nights. We have live music on the Saturday of Second Mondays. People in town, nothing to do. We love listening to music, they do too. But we've met a lot of new people. They just come to visit. It's great. They love our little town. They think it's neat. I'd love to see it turn into a destination town, similar to a Grapevine or a Fredericksburg. And it has the potential to do that. We have a lot of rich history here, a lot of structures that are still able to be restored and promote that history.
Well, as far as Kimber Creek goes, so we have a lot of people that come in on certain nights. So Wednesday night, they come in for Wine Down Wednesday. They have named it that, certain groups, not us. And then Thursday is Thirsty Thursday, so they come in for that. Friday night, I mean, we've been doing really good, thanks to all the community, that has really supported us. and
so it has
stuff.
been an adjustment since being a wine bar, you're open later.
We are.
Yes.
So is that adjustment as business owners to now, I mean, instead of 8 to 5:30, it's probably, because what time is the wine bar open till during the week?
So we're closed on Sunday and Monday. We were open all day on Tuesdays. Now we close at 4, except on the last Tuesday of every month, the library comes and they do a book club meeting
How
on the
fun.
last Tuesday of every month, so we stay open later for that. Wednesday and Thursday we're open until 7, and Friday and Saturday until 8:30. Now,
It added a lot of hours to our
Yes.
weekly schedule.
yeah, if
It's
somebody
like I said-
comes in at 7, or if they're there at 6:30, we're not going to make them leave at 7. They'll stay. I believe last night was Wednesday night, and we left at a little before 9.
Yes, something like that.
Barely before 9. So, we love the people coming in. We like talking to them, meeting new people, and it's kind of neat, but
It's fun. It's
we're
kind of
ready
like
to
a
get home
social
sometimes.
gathering.
Yes.
It's kind of like a social gathering sometimes, even for us.
Yeah.
People come there to have a glass of wine, a cheese tray, just relax, talk, and there's some that want to talk to us. Want to know a little history, or so it's been social for us too. We've got an outdoor area in the back that's fenced in. We have music out there sometimes, chairs, tables.
And it's grass, you never have to mow out back.
Never have to mow
Never.
artificial
It's always
turf. It's always green. I don't have no maintenance. I've learned that as you've redone some of these buildings, you're thinking, you got to come up with something, no maintenance plan, because this is adding a lot of work to me on top of working at Kimber Creek. So, but we've got some great employees too. That's kind of allowing us to free up some of our time. And I've been trying to convince Deann to let me do another building.
So I was going to ask if
I think I'm up for it. I
there's
think
another
I can handle
building
it. It
in-
may take me a little bit longer this time, but
We'll get back with you on that.
Okay.
but another thing, Bowie had some great traction just before the tornado. We had new businesses. I've been on the chamber 5 years now, going on 5 years, and we'd go to these ribbon cuttings or grand openings, and we were getting some traction before the tornado. And it was exciting for a little town, the community, and all of a sudden tornado come in, devastated that. Some businesses, as you still see on Smythe, never reopened. Martha Cox with Martha's Attic, that was the end of that, you know, and so it was a sad time too. We lost some businesses, but I would say in the last little over 12 months, I've been to more ribbon cuttings and grand openings than I had in the previous 3 years. And in fact, we've got three this month that have coming up, new businesses. I think it's awesome too that the businesses that are opening are something that's new to Bowie that we don't already currently have, which I think helps diversify the downtown and let people get out, walk around and go all these businesses instead of them all being the same thing. So, and you're filling in empty buildings, fixing them up real nice, so it's adding to the beauty of downtown. There's more to go, there's more to do, but I think it encourages others to want to do that, or get this vision, you know. If they don't have it, come to me, I'll give you the vision for it. All I gotta do is look at it and try to give you some hints. But,
And as a community, because businesses are opening, what can us as community members do to help?
Well, the best thing is to support your small business, right? I mean, we wouldn't exist without y'all, without the people supporting us. And we do love it. We love it here. We love the people coming in and seeing everybody. And
Because what's the best advertisement in a small town?
word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
yeah.
Word of mouth. And now with technology, Facebook, right? And so
Yes.
it's amazing to me that she may post something for Kimber Creek, I'll reshare it, and all of a sudden there's people commenting it back from Houston and Austin, and hey, we're going to come up and visit your little town, or just friends of friends, or friends of family. It's great advertising. And
Yeah, we
It's-
love people going out and telling everybody else about us. That is the best part.
And the city does a great job, I think, of help promoting the businesses, the chamber, EDC, community development. They go out and fix it all up for the holidays, the Christmas, different, and put lighting it up. I think as a community, just as a group, everybody does a great job. Because I was playing golf in Munster the other day, or a month ago, and guy came up and said, "Hey, you guy that owns that wine bar in Bowie?" I said, "Yeah, well, how'd you know that?" You know, it's all a friend of mine told me, or we've been down there, and so, you know, that's pretty cool that even other communities around us, all the way to Wichita Falls, know about our town and have visited it. But Sip and Stroll does bring in a lot of visitors. Second Monday brings in a lot of visitors. The Sale Barn brings in a lot of visitors, and it's great for our community. It's great for our economy here.
And the Sip and Stroll is now
It's now
once every quarter?
It's every quarter, and it's, like I said, usually before an event. Like it may be one before
The next one coming up is Mother's Day.
Mother's Day,
The
and
Friday
then
before Mother's
I think
Day.
it's the Chicken and Bread Days, and another maybe Jim Bowie.
No, I think it's before the Christmas parade.
Okay, so it's been a big hit. It's been a huge hit. If one of the most successful things, if somebody would say vote on it, I'd say it's been that for the businesses.
Was that helped the downtown businesses?
Brings out the locals, brings out friends, family, and even people from surrounding areas.
And have you noticed an increase since you opened the wine bar on the Kimber Creek, the gift side?
Actually, we have, yeah. People come in, and it's kind of funny. The more the men drink, the more the ladies shop. Or the more the ladies shop, the more they
So
they
since it's
drink.
not a cigar and whiskey
Right.
bar, it's a wine bar, do you have just as many men that come in? And
We do.
Because you don't just offer wine.
We have beer
You
as
have
well.
beer,
And we
yeah.
have soft drinks and water and cheese trays and stuff too.
But we do. We do get a lot of men in.
There are a lot of men, and some of them drink wine, some of them don't, you know, but they just come in. A lot of them come in with their wives. And
We get a lot of suggestions on things we could add
Oh,
to the
boy, do
store. And it may be one or two people, and you got to do, as a business owner and thinking financially, do you want to add that, you know, for 3 or 4 people? You've got to think that out. And it's gotten out that I've talked about a cigar bar. And there's some guys that kind of, when are you going to do that? When are you
Yeah.
going to do that? And I don't know. I think if somebody wanted to do that on Smythe Street, oh my God, I could give you all kinds of ideas. And take it all the way back to 1883 when Smokey Row started, and you'd have that to start from and work on. A cigar bar and whiskey.
They would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I don't do it, I hope somebody does.
Because it is, it's one of my favorite streets.
Yes.
I just really.
Well, and I love the brick road, you know, I hope they don't ever do anything with
I
that.
like the
but
historical look of
it's
it.
really neat.
My thinking is that as we grow as a community, and there's been some people relocate, I think like a lot of us personally want to get back to our small town roots where I grew up. I think they may get some ideas. I've always thought that Smythe Street is this diamond in the rough, right? It's not, if you were coming to town looking to open business, I don't know if that would be your first choice over Mason, but honestly, after digging up all the history and the brick roads and the people that are already over there, I think it's a diamond in the rough. I think it's going to be as successful or more successful than Mason one day. And I don't know if that's within 5 years, 10 years from now, but you know, as towns grow, you run out of space and you run out of buildings, and those are
And
ready.
just in the last 3 or 4 years, it's grown.
It has.
There used to be maybe a couple businesses over, and
Yes.
that was it.
Yeah.
It was
A couple.
pretty empty.
And we lost a couple after the tornado.
When we first had Kimber Creek over there, it was Creative Cakes, Napa, and the veterinarian right there.
The
And
s-
that was it. There was nothing
That's right.
else.
The staple is Scrokes. It's been there
But
forever.
they're way on that end. We were on
And
the
you-
other.
And
way
another
other.
thing, you know, going through history is I found out that Creative Cakes was the original bus station in Bowie back in the 40s and 50s. Pretty neat history there. Pet Clinic, I'm trying to remember, I've got so many buildings on my mind, but the Pet Clinic was,
There was a donut shop over there
seemed like a
somewhere.
donut shop at one
It was
point.
it was a sweet shop.
It
Sweet
was
shop?
Sweet
Yes,
Shop.
it was.
Oh, you
the-
see, he knows.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
the best, and everybody will tell you it was the best place to get a donut.
And
ever.
Really?
I'll ask
Yes.
you, you've been here your whole life.
Yes.
Did you know where, Amon Carter's house was when he grew up as a little boy? Right behind Napa. Where Napa sits today on the corner of Montague and Smythe. It was between Smythe and Mason. On that empty spot right behind Napa is where his little framed house sat. His very tiny white house. It's photographed in some pictures, and I'm assuming that's how he got started, is selling the chicken and bread on the train station, because the train station's right across the road. So cool, just stuff I've dug up that it's like, I guess has been buried that not many people know about, but I enjoy doing that. I need to get back to the library because I've got some other things I want to dig up. So.
You know, so again, when I mentioned about us talking, you said, "Well, we don't live here," but I want to ask you I would say this is what makes a hometown. It's the history, the people in it.
Yes.
You feel like it's a place you belong.
Right.
And I think that's what makes a hometown. I don't think it necessarily means where you currently live so what makes, and we've already probably talked about this, but what makes this special and what makes you call it my hometown? Because you don't have to live here to be your hometown. And I know people are going to listen to this and watch this and not know any of this history Brad, that you mentioned, that have lived their whole life. Like, we talk, hardly nobody knows that was Smokey Row, or nobody's probably going to know that there was a killing on the corner and that's what shut it down. Nobody's going to know that. And you know that. So what makes it, from each of you, what makes it, special to call my hometown?
Well, what I have really come to love are the people here. I mean, they just, like we talked about the tornado and people coming in the store, they've just really embraced us and just really accepted us being here, even though we are not from here. And they've all accepted us being here and just embraced the businesses and everything. And that's what I love about it the most. I have people that come into the new Kimber Creek and that have been in the old one, and they're like, "I'm so glad you finally opened. Thank you for opening. I'm so glad to see you again." And they're all like friends. They hug when they come in, and that's what makes it special to me.
What about you?
I mean, what a great city. I mean, it's like she said, the people here are great. They've been always welcoming to us since day one. Some of these people we've gotten to know well enough that truly they some of them feel like family. You know, we talk to them almost every day. I grew up in a small town. This is kind of what it reminded me of when we first came here, is a small town community. The tornado just solidified it. I mean, as bad, as devastating that it was to everybody that was in Bowie that suffered damage, thank God nobody was hurt. But everybody came together. Nobody asked, they just did. And so that solidified it for me that this was a great community. All my friends that know me very well, that have looked at me like I'm their family, know that I promote the county. Montague County is a beautiful county. It's got great terrain and great people. I mean, like I said, we've had people from Nocona, Montague, Forestburg, Sunset. They pretty much call this home too. It's their community. They come here to shop. They come here to spend time with their family. So.
And we've had a lot of people that have used the event center, for family reunions and special occasions, for birthdays and
90-year-old
retirement
birthdays.
parties, and even funerals, not having the funeral here, but they're gathering after or before, and everybody just talks to us about how great a place it is to have your family. It feels cozy and feels just nostalgic kind of for their families, and so that always makes us feel really great.
And how can they connect with you? How can they find Kimber Creek? How can they find the Chapman Building?
They can find them both on Facebook. Kimber Creek, it's actually Kimber Creek Trading Post on Facebook, and then the Chapman Event Center.
But you can find us we're always 90% of the time
Almost
we're at the
always.
store.
Because you're a small business owner,
It
right? Retired small business
Yes,
owner.
108 North Mason.
Yeah.
108 North Mason is where Kimber Creek is, and it's catty corner from the post office. And then, of course, we're here on White Street.
This one is 114 West Wise.
Yes, but it's best to contact us at Kimber Creek.
Yeah.
That's where.
Yeah.
And you have a website for the event center for the Chapman Building, or?
Facebook
No?
page.
Facebook.
Facebook,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, and we'll put those in the show notes so everybody can know where to
Okay,
find
great.
you. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank
you
you.
for taking a little time to share the history, share about Kimber Creek, share your heart, allow us to utilize this space and be able to see part of our history behind us on an ongoing basis, because I think that's so important. That so many people, not only in our community, but around the world, will see.
Absolutely.
And
That's
I
right.
hope that brings more people to our town when they understand the heart of the people that live here, of the business owners, of our buildings, our rich history that we have. And thank you for doing that for our community.
Well, thank you for doing
Yes.
this.
Thank you for doing this, because without you, this wouldn't get promoted.
Right.
And so thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to do this.
Well, you're welcome. It's just, I just want to see our community grow.
Yeah.
There too.
And I just think it's special. And I think just like the history, people outside of our community don't know about our community, but our own community doesn't know about our community.
That's right.
As I've
Yeah.
learned
That
a
is
little
right.
bit.
Yeah. And I think if you live here, you should really know how we just take it for granted.
Right.
We stop at the lights, we go by the businesses,
Yes.
we eat there, we don't appreciate the value that it has.
That's
Yes.
true.
And it's the people, as you mentioned,
It
as
is.
everybody that I've talked to that has been on the show, talk about the people. What makes the best thing? It's the people.
That's
is the
right.
people.
You could get rid of all the buildings, all the businesses, the people would still be here.
And even though there's some people that have moved out here that did not grow up here, they're great people. I mean, we've met them. They're good people coming here. And I'm glad they chose Bowie. Really, I used to ask, well, how'd you find Bowie? Now I just say, I'm glad you found Bowie. Because they love it.
And I think we'll attract more and more
I do
like
too.
that.
I do too.
Because people, the reason for starting this show is, as I mentioned, was when people pull up to maybe see the Bowie knife, or they come in to Kimber Creek for some wine for the shop, when they have an event. I want them to come into our community and they can just feel that's different. They
Yes.
can't really put a finger on it, but it's like, I know it's different.
Yes.
I always say it's like when I go to my parents' house. I can't tell you what it is, but something about a house I grew up in is just different.
Yes.
It is.
And you feel like you're at home.
Yeah.
And I hope that when people, and that is my goal, is that when people come to our town, our community, they feel that.
Right.
Correct.
And they go, this is home.
I agree.
And I may not live there, but I want to keep going back because I get that feeling every time I go back. And so that's my hope. So thank you for taking your time out of your schedule away from Kimber Creek to join me
Absolutely.
today and visit with me.
Well, thank
a
you
little
for
bit.
letting us share
Yeah.
that with you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And thank you to each of you for stopping by and visiting with us today. And we're looking forward to seeing you around my hometown.